Thank you so much for the introduction there. And I want to just thank everyone that's joined us this evening for this International Women's Day. This year's Women's International Day the theme is Choose to Challenge. I think we can all agree that this past year, and it's been a year from you know where, has been so full of challenges. And I think we've probably all agree that we've had enough challenges to last a lifetime. So let's hope and pray that this next year will be and onward will be years of just flourishing. But with this panel here today, I want to celebrate them because every one of these ladies has been a trailblazer in the travel industry, and not only in the travel industry, but in their lives. And they've all had challenges in their life, both personally and professionally. And I think today we're going to hear from them on what they've done to overcome those challenges and how they can help us all to learn and just be inspired by their life. So that's the purpose of this today, is inspiration, education, just a chance to learn and grow. And I just can't thank you all enough for being on here. I wanted to introduce in no particular order because they're all amazing, but Vicki Freed, Senior Vice President of Sales of Royal Caribbean. Kristin Karst, co-owner and Executive Vice President of AmaWaterways. Paula Hayes, and she is Vice President of Sales of Globus Family of Brands. And Dondra Ritzenthaler, she is Senior Vice President of Sales of Celebrity Cruise Line. So we're going to get started here, and I'm going to be asking them questions. But what I wanted to first make a comment is, if you have any questions that we don't address, if you could take the time to put those in the Q&A box at the bottom, and that at the end of the questions that we have for the panelists, we will hopefully have time to address those. But if we don't, we will get answers for you and get those sent to you. So if we can get started, what I want to do with this first question is I want everybody just to kind of get a chance to answer this, is just share a little bit about your road to success and why the theme of Choose to Challenge kind of applies to that. And just share a little bit about, what you've gone through in your road to success. And so if you want to start off, Paula, why don't you start off?
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you, Mimi, for having this panel. I think this is really a great idea to inspire and motivate and be a sisterhood together. I hope there are some gentlemen on the phone. We certainly welcome you as well. But yeah, I think it's a real testimony to you, Mimi, and please know that you have been an inspiration to me, as well as I'm sure all of my colleagues in my career as well. So a little bit about me. So I grew up in a really small town in northern Pennsylvania. My entire family lived within a 40-mile radius. I rarely left the state, and I had never been on a plane in my life until I was 15 years old, when I became a foreign exchange student. So I moved to Guatemala City. I immersed myself in Spanish. I had to make new friends. I had to learn a new culture. I went to school there full time. Returned home, had a passion for language, graduated with a degree in languages, went out to find a job, and guess what? I could not find a job that required language skills, not one full-time job, but my search put me in touch with a travel company. And this travel company didn't need me full-time for language, but they needed a res agent. So the woman who owned the company put me to work in res, and she saw the job was memorable in many, many ways, but probably the most memorable was that she saw something in me that I had never seen before, and that she said I was a really good salesperson. I hadn't even dreamed of sales. So she created a BDM position for me. She put me on the road, and I guess the rest is history. From there, those that know me know that I have a history with casino hotels in the Bahamas. I have a history in ocean cruise with the Big Red Boat, which is where I met Nini and Mark, her husband. I have all-inclusive resorts in my background, and for the last 12 years, I've been at the Globus Family Brands selling escorted touring and river cruising. So when you talk about choosing the challenge, I guess I think about, moving to a foreign country at 15 years old and pursuing a career in sales, which I never even thought I was going to be good at it. pushing to find a career with so many different suppliers and having to understand how all those businesses work, that in the end, all those challenges really paid off for me.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Wow, I can't imagine that young being in a foreign country.
I know. Fearless.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Vicki, how about you?
Wow. Well, I always wanted to be in sales. Unlike you, Paula, I knew that was going to be my wheelhouse. And so when I was in college, actually, University of Colorado in Boulder, where the state you live in, and where Dondra is right now, I took a salesmanship class. And during this class, we had to send out resumes for a bunch of jobs. And so I had different resumes for all different types of industries. I really did think I was going to work for Xerox or IBM. But I developed a travel brochure resume, and it said a package for all seasons, and it was like a number 10 size envelope brochure, and my professional objective was my travel destination, and everything was in travel talk. And I sent this resume out cold. And I was interviewing with everybody that would come on campus, regardless of what the job was, because if you could interview well, you would get flown to their headquarters for the second interview. So I interviewed with companies in San Francisco thinking, oh, I'd like a trip to San Francisco. And it helped me with my interview skills. And then I took a job back in Los Angeles, where I'm from, with a travel agency, Ask Mr. Foster, which became Carlson. And I was in charge of the bank travel clubs. And one day a sales rep came in from Princess Cruises, and he told me all about cruising. I knew nothing about cruising. The only thing I knew about cruising was the Love Boat, the television show. And somebody called me and said they wanted to book a group on a cruise. And like, I had no clue what to do. So I went to this all-day seminar. It was National Airlines Cruise Week. It was in Los Angeles at the Century Plaza Hotel, I'll never forget. And I remember there were 17 cruise lines back then. And I heard Bob Dickinson speak, and I thought, I want to work for this man. So I pursued it. I drove him nuts. I remember he asked me if I went up to him and I said, hi, Mr. Dickinson, my name is Vicki Randolph, and, I want to work for you and your company. And he looked at me like, well, yeah, you do. And like, do you have a resume? I said, no, but I can get you my resume. So the next day, long story short, the cruise week was at the Sheraton Universal. And he says, can you drop it off? So I had to be at work at 8 in the morning. So I dropped it off at 7:30, the travel resume. And I called the hotel. I said, has Mr. Dickinson picked this up? It was like 9 o'clock. And they go, no, not yet. He forgot about me. And then at 10 o'clock, I called. I said, has Mr. Dickinson picked up the envelope? They go, no. And I, at that point, was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to ask my boss, who I've been at this job for 6 weeks, that I need a lunch at 10 in the morning? And so I called back at 11 o'clock, and he still had not picked it up. And I didn't have the guts to ask my boss to let me have lunch that early. So I finally called back and I said, hello, this is Mr. Dickinson's secretary, and I'm calling from Miami, Florida. And there are airline tickets in an envelope that he must have for the flight today that he is taking. And then they delivered it to him when he was getting into the car to go to the airport with another cruise line executive, and he opened my resume. And then he didn't make it easy on me. So I had to pursue this for months. I mean, I wrote him letters. I, did everything possible to just nudge him. At one point, I sent him a telegram and I said, dear Mr. Dickinson, my anchor is up and I'm ready to dock with Karst Cruise Lines. I hope your compass is pointed in my direction. And finally, he hired me, finally. And that was the only job I've ever applied for. I was 21. I was a sales rep in Southern California. And I guess my one, piece of advice is, just don't give up and just keep pursuing your dreams. And I knew nothing about cruising. I didn't know anybody who had taken a cruise. My grandparents were too young to take cruising. But it wasn't about the job. It was about the personality of this individual, Bob Dickinson. I thought I could learn a lot from him. He was so dynamic when he spoke, and I didn't know anything about the industry, but I knew I wanted to work for him. Mm-hmm. And the rest is history. I relocated many years later from Los Angeles to Miami to become the Senior VP of Sales and Marketing for Carnival. I actually jumped over. I was a director, never became a VP. And so my boss was a VP. I now was his boss. And so the rest is history. And you know, when Bob Dickinson left Carnival, I jumped ship and went over to Royal Caribbean. And my good friend, my sister Dondra, was there as my ally, and she got me acquainted with the corporation. I'm so grateful for the two companies that I've had a chance to work for my entire career.
That's fantastic. You know, and somebody like Bob, you learn so much from someone like that. And I'm sure people feel the same way about you, Vicki, about the direction that you've given them and the wisdom that you've imparted to them, just like Bob did to you. I'm sure that people feel the same way, you know. So how about you, Kristin?
Well, I mean, it's wonderful to really see the passion of all the ladies. My story is a little bit different. I grew up in the former eastern part of Germany, so my accent is not from Southern California. And, and actually, I'm very proud that I still have this accent, right? Because people, they will recognize it and so on. And it makes them curious, of course, about the travel destination Germany or Europe altogether. So while growing up, travel was very expensive then. We were only allowed to go to the eastern part of the world. So I did learn to appreciate the value early in my life. I realized how meaningful it was to work hard in order to save up for the travel experiences that I so craved, because my parents would tell my brother and myself, you always need to contribute to our travel experiences. Wherever we go, you would have to pay your share forward.
Oh.
So, which then, of course, we would not like this, but today I'm so proud and so happy that my parents did this to us. So they had a little country house. They would grow vegetables there and fruits. So we would, you know, harvest the vegetable, would sell them to our neighbors. We would recycle paper products, and just to really raise the amounts that we needed in order to go on this vacation with our parents, which was the Caucasian region in the former Soviet Union, the Black Sea, Romania, Bulgaria, actually wonderful travel adventures. And I was also born on the Elbe River, and we did day boat trips and went hiking and biking and fishing. And that's when my heart was really set on travel. So there was only one class per year at the university where you could study travel and hospitality. And I knew that just top grades wouldn't be all what you needed in order to get there. So at age 16, in every school break, I actually volunteered and worked in the German travel agency. That was only the government agency. I worked in incoming tourism, outgoing, reservations, airline. I was writing airline tickets then by hand, and I dreamed about, you know, calculating the fares to go to Bombay and Calcutta, and I had no idea, you know, in this big world, but the dreams really became so much that this, of course, this work all the time helped me, in addition to the grades, to land the place. I studied tourism and business management, got my MBA, went on with American Express in Germany, Switzerland, and then of course moved to California, and that was 99. Now, my time with American Express, I have to say, was very, very valuable, because I did learn to listen there, what it is to deliver high-end client services, the value of empathy. That means to put yourself into your client's shoes. I mean, those blue box values, they're really, really something that got into me. And of course, helps me still today with our own cruise line, with AmaWaterways. So this skill set gave me the edge. I would say that I needed to move. And then I started first with a different river cruise line. It was there when I met today's godfather of river cruising, I can say, Rudy Schreiner. He became my biggest supporter after watching how quickly I was able to adapt to the North American mindset and still keeping the European culture there. And later we founded AmaWaterways together with the late Jimmy Murphy. You all know Gary Murphy, of course. So with his father, we envisioned fast opportunities in the rubber cruise industry then. And we wanted to create a company that we ourselves would want to travel with. One with personalized service, wonderful food, and delicious wines and tours that truly reflect the authentic experiences in Europe that both Rudy and I treasured. So AmaWaterways was born in 2002. So that's now 18 years ago. Since we took that entrepreneurial leap, I can say that risk, but it was always calculated risk, because coming from Europe, we are also very conservative when it comes to money. So we wanted to sleep well, so all our ships are paid off, and that's what we did all of these times. And we never stopped challenging each other to provide innovative and unforgettable ideas when it comes to vacation experiences. And so I can really say I was fortunate enough to find partners like Rudy and Jimmy who trusted my instincts and recognized the value of the sales experience, hard work, passion, creativity, and this is where we are today.
That's fantastic. Well, that is amazing. I like that idea of, your kids contributing. If my kids are watching right now, I want you to remember what you just said about contributing to the vacation.
Well, I couldn't do this to my daughter. Well, not then. I mean, she would just said, Mom, I would never want to see you anymore. But, when I talked to her today, probably she said, why did you not do it with me? Right. Yeah. So we have to work through this, that maybe we risk not to be loved by our children, but to really, really, I'm sorry. It is important to be like this.
Yeah. Well, how about you, Dondra? Tell us a little bit about your little road to success here.
Well, I'll bring us home on this. I was born in Texas, and like Paula, a really small town, and a very modest family who we loved each other greatly. So we didn't feel like we missed much, even though we didn't have much. And so when I graduated high school and then was fortunate enough to go to college, Stephen F. Austin State University in a little bitty Texas town called Nacogdoches. Y'all need to get some of that. All these words, right? And to be honest, when I graduated, I had never flown on a plane. So Paula, when you said that you were 15, I was like, Paula and I really have a lot in common, girl. We need to talk about this. And I flew to the interview. And that was the first time that I had ever flown in an airline. And I was interviewing with an airline. And so, I thought my chances might be a little bit tough to get the job since I had never flown before. But as the good Lord had it, I was fortunate enough to secure a job with American Airlines. But I want to tell you a little bit about resilience, because I was very fortunate. I interviewed with Delta Airlines, and 3 days later, I interviewed with American Airlines. And the day that I got the letter from Delta rejecting me, I got the letter from American accepting me. And it just goes to show you that, you got to be resilient. And I'm like, why in the world would they not have hired me? I don't understand. And so I called and I asked for feedback, which I hope all of you will do. And if somebody ever tries to say, oh, you did fine, there was just more people, don't let them get away with that. Say, no, give me very specific things as to why I didn't get the job.
Good point.
And I love that their response, Mimi, because their response was, you were too assertive. And I'm like, that's perfect. I wouldn't fit in with Delta Airlines.
Yeah.
But I would fit in at American Airlines. And Vicki's laughing. In fact, all of the panel's laughing because they know that I'm assertive, and I'm proud of being assertive, because women have to be assertive, not mean and not aggressive, but assertive. And we have to go after and get what it is that we want while taking others with us. So fortunately, I was able to secure the job with American Airlines, and I worked there for 20 years in one day, Mimi, 20 years in one day. And the reason for that is because when I was blessed enough to have the opportunity to interview and go to work for Celebrity Cruises, I could have started with 19 years and 9 months. But I told them that mentally I had to finish 20 years. There was just something magical about it. I didn't get any more benefits or anything like that. I just had to finish what I started. And so 20 years and one day later, I was blessed enough to come into the travel business from a cruise line perspective in addition to the airlines. And it's blessed my life, Mimi. It's blessed my life and been a part of these amazing women, getting to meet people like you, getting to meet people and get to work beside people like Vicki and Kristin and Paula. It's amazing. And so, my message about my career was now I've almost been here 20 years.
Wow.
And so now I've got 2 jobs, but I got to tell you that the growth that I've been able to experience is by listening and by being mentors and being around women like all of us on this panel and the women that are listening today and listening to them. And so I'm very blessed in my career, but I got to tell you, there's still a lot I need to learn, and I'm going to continue to be assertive. I can promise you that.
Well, it's like every day we're still learning. It seems like that's one of the things that a good friend of our family has said, if you're not growing, you're dying. And it's like every day we have to be learning something new, being willing to take on those challenges, just like this last year has been for everyone. And those that are going to survive are going to come out even stronger because of it. Right. So I just thank you all for that. That's really interesting hearing your stories. And, one of the things today that came up to me was someone asked me, how do you balance your family life, your business life? Well, I'm like, well, really, it's not. Do I? It's probably not. But anyway,
you do.
So, but I just wanted to kind of Dondra and Paula, if you can kind of share how in the world with everything in your life, with business and trying to have, a marriage and your family, and how do you balance all that? And not go crazy? Or maybe we all are a little bit.
Paula, do you want to go first, my friend?
Sure. So I have a little bit of different situation, I think, than many women, in that I was fortunate to marry a man 36 years ago who I met at an ASTA conference, believe it or not, who really valued staying home and taking care of our family and raising children, and kind of forsaking his own career and money and possessions way before it was mainstream. He became a stay-at-home dad 26 years ago. And we never looked back. It was the right decision for our family, but it really helped me because I didn't have that same distraction with balance that I think many, many working women did, because I knew he was always there for the girls. In fact, he was the favorite class mom ever. Whenever the girls, all the women that were the class moms, whenever they went on a trip, they couldn't wait for Bill to come because they knew all the kids would, stay in line. But at the same time, that allowed me to travel a lot. And so when I was home, that's where I really had to rein myself in, because I love to work and I could easily be a workaholic. And it's hard for me to turn it off. But the other quality I have that I think really balances that out is a good self-discipline. I am very self-disciplined. And when I make a commitment, I make that commitment seriously and I take it seriously. And I think I learned early on that when I made a commitment to my family, whether it was my daughter to go shopping at the mall or my husband to take time out to go watch a sunset in Key Biscayne, I didn't break that commitment, because he had to be as important to me. My girls had to be as important to me as my boss, as my biggest account. And I think that's what really got me through that, is just respecting that, because at the top of the list of people I don't want to let down is me. I don't play the blame game. When I miss something and when I don't make a commitment, or I don't miss an appointment, that's on me. And that's the place I don't want to be. So I would say that is probably the secret, is make those commitments, and whether they're personal or professional, keep them.
Exactly. That's right. Keep your word. It's always been a big deal to me, is keeping your word. If you make a commitment, you keep your word. It's kind of like a big deal.
It is a big deal.
A really big deal. I'm all about it. How about you, Dondra?
And Mimi, I'm Paula, like you, I think the most important things are 2 things in my life. And I think for all of us really is support, right? So in Paula's case, it's Bill. In my case, it's certainly been my sweet husband as well, my mom. That support system is super important. But I also want to talk about balance and guilt, right? Because it's interesting. Men don't feel guilt the way that women do. I don't understand it, but they don't. And, they think they go out and they do their jobs and come home. And, if they didn't see their kids, they don't feel the same guilt that we do as moms. But let me tell you something that's really interesting. And I'm going to give my Vicki, who I love dearly. She's a great friend of mine. And also I get the chance to work with her. When I very first started, she actually worked for Carnival and we were competitors at the time. And we talked about this. We literally said, how do you deal with this? Because, my kids are 3 and 1 and I'm gone. And, I feel like I'm not being a good mommy. And it's really interesting that balance and guilt are 2 really important words on this. One is you got to find balance. You have to find balance. It could be different for each of us on the panel and you, Mimi, but it's balance in our own lives, right? So some people lean more this way for balance than the other, but you have to find what you feel is your right balance. And I was fortunate enough to find that. And then we got to let ourselves off the hook. The guilt has got to go away because guilt is something that we need to shed. And Vicki told me about a book that says that she said, you should read this book. And it's How to Be a Stay at Work Mom. And I got to tell you, that book was really profound and it really gave me so much peace. And that's what we as women need is peace, right? We need to support each other and we need to find peace in our life. And what I learned is through this book and through my own life is that kids that have moms that work end up actually being more well-rounded, more resilient, able to adapt to change because they didn't have this perfect little life, right?
Right.
And so I actually now feel very blessed that I was sometimes not there and that my sons, which I now are 21 and 19, Mimi, my sons will be better husbands,
Right.
Because they saw that my husband had to cook the dinner and wash the clothes while
Right.
I was gone. And so in their mind, the roles are, we're in this as a team. We do this together. It's not mom does this role and dad does this one. So I feel like as working moms, if we can just find balance and get rid of the guilt, because believe it or not, if you can just love those kids with all your heart and it's quality and not quantity, trust me, they're going to be amazingly successful. Get rid of the guilt.
That's a really, really interesting point that you're making, Dondra, because for years, I felt like, oh my gosh, the guilt was something else. But now as my kids are older and they have been shaped by the travel that they've done and they've become who they are because of the travels, because of the cultures that they've experienced, because of the differences of people, they've become the people that I am so proud of because they have learned to accept different cultures and embrace them. And I just love that. I love that they are both kind people, but I think a lot of that is because they've learned to see that they're in this world. There's a lot of people that are a lot less fortunate and they experience that in our travels. And I think because of that, they've become better people and they've seen, they've seen the hard work that I put in to be in the business that I'm in and be successful. And now they understand the value of hard work. And I think that's something that is really been beneficial. So I appreciate you talking about that guilt because I think every working mom out there has dealt with that. But I love that. Vicki, you'll have to send me that book, that name of that book.
So the book was called I Don't Know How She Does It. And it was a story about a working mom and how
that's right.
How when all the other mothers who are stay-at-home moms, there's nothing wrong with stay-at-home moms, but the stay-at-home moms make the working moms feel really bad. And they bake all the cupcakes for, the bake sales, and we go to Costco and we throw them in the, car and we just drop them off. And I don't know how she does it. And it really did change. It just said, it's okay. And Mimi, I do want to add, and I'll forego another question because I do want to add something that I think is really profound. It sort of builds on what Dondra was saying and what you were saying about your children become more independent and they see you having a life of, you know, working. And I remember when my older two kids were in college, and we were now home with my youngest, Brent. And I remember sitting at the table at dinner with him, because we now had a little bit more time. And I said, Brent, do you wish I was a stay-at-home mom where every day at 3 o'clock when you come home from school, I'd have home-baked cookies? And he looked at me and he said, you know, Mom, because you work and because of your job, we've been able to enjoy cookies throughout the world. And you know, at that point, I said, okay, he got it. He got it. So he traveled the world eating cookies. He didn't need me home with an apron on baking cookies every day.
And you let go of the guilt, Vic.
Yeah.
At that moment, you let go of the guilt. And that's what I hope somebody listening today can do, is to find that magical moment like you found that gave us the ability to let go of the guilt. Because it can really impact you. So you're talking to, you know, all four of us and Mimi, who, and by the way, for those of you who may or may not know Mimi, she's amazing and wildly successful. But we all had to deal with it too. And the advice that we're trying to hope that you will hear is let go of the guilt. Your kids are going to be amazing. Just love them.
Yeah, exactly. That's so true. That's so true. Well, as we one of the next questions that I have is just about, you know, as we've kind of gone through this past year, what kind of qualities have you seen in either some of your friends or your accounts that you call on or clients that you have? What are some of the qualities that you see in a successful businesswoman in today's world in just overcoming challenges? And so what do you see out there in the world that has made that person successful? So I'm going to ask Kristin that, if you don't mind starting there.
No, absolutely. And I want to start I want to pick up from what we as parents do, what your parents have done for yours, and how our children see us. So I can also say that my mother has always been a guiding light for me. So she taught me that out of great challenges come great opportunities. And that's exactly what we have today. You just have to be brave enough to pursue the challenges and not to be afraid of failure. And you have to be truly authentic. You have to be yourself. So what do I see in successful businesswomen around myself? And that's the same how I feel I am. Passion is one of the qualities, curiosity, positivity. So there is actually a quote where it really says, the most successful entrepreneurs I know are positive and optimistic. It's just part of the job description, right? And so I think that connects all of us. I also believe that communication skills are so important. As a leader, you have to keep sharing your vision and your passion, so your team shares the why rather than being told what to do. They all look up to us and they become the most fearless leaders themselves, you know, if they can develop and if they have this passion and dedication, and we have to enable them. So you can't communicate too much. I would say we just need to make sure that our team and our customers know what is happening step by step. So staying in touch, staying together, making sure that all the team members know they are not alone, as difficult it might be and is for many of them. So that's so important. Like in my company, in our company, I have been sending Monday morning messages, motivational messages out since the pandemic started last year in March. So it's now almost a year of messages. And I don't know myself how I always find the content, but I have the women around myself, strong females who share this with me, who are inspired by these messages, who send content over. You know, I use their quotes, all of this, their pictures, their stories, and this all unites us. And that's why also we all do so many virtual events, right? Sip and Sail events, webinars, you know, keep engaged. keep positive, shine through all of this. So important. It helps to keep everyone aligned and motivated. And we all know the end of this tunnel is coming soon, and very soon we all can start traveling again. And then, it will be the best. I always say the rivers, but the oceans, I can say the same. Or Paula, of course, your river and land at the same time. All these destinations will throw us the best celebrations ever. And that's how I would say it.
Yeah. How about you, Vicki?
I think if we step back before the pandemic, we were all crazy busy. And we'd all say, if I only had the time, I could do this. Well, we do have the time now. And now's the time to connect with people. And if I'm a travel advisor or a supplier, connecting with our customers is so key to the future, because they're going to remember you because you reached out to them. And some of you might be thinking, well, I have nothing to talk about. And I think that's okay. I think you just call and you say, hi, Dondra, it's Vicki. And I'm just thinking about you. And I just wanted to connect with you. And I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing. And you know what? When Dondra's ready to book a vacation and plan a vacation, she's going to remember that I cared enough to call her, send a card, send a note, whatever it takes. This is the time that you can stand out from everybody else and be proactive and call people. And I still do believe that the phone works magic. It is the personal touch, or even Zoom, but it is the personal connection that will make all the difference.
It really does. We did the same thing when all this started, and we did a lot of things when there was more time, and we're still doing it. But those outbound calls to those clients that have been home by themselves, that are alone and separated from their family, and there's nothing better than to reach out to those people and let them know you care. And I think that right now more than ever, it's so important. They just are so appreciative. And I had a story, reached out to a client of mine who's been battling cancer. And so I reached out to him last week, and I just said, how are you doing? He said, I'm at the doctor's office, but I can't talk right now, but I'll call you back. And we had a few years ago when he was first diagnosed, he was in our office back when you could have people in, and he'd been with us for 20 years, cruising with us, and loved cruising, and all inclusive and everything. And so we had that day years ago, we all kind of gathered around him and said a prayer for him. And he says, I will never forget that prayer that you guys prayed for me. He said that just, I've been doing great. They never thought I'd live this long. And so it's those moments that you think, take the time to touch people, to reach out to them, because everybody's hurting, everybody's facing challenges, and let's be that positive influence. And Mark and I were talking just yesterday about these four ladies, the theme that is the consistent with all four of you is positivity. And I think that is, it makes such a difference in your life, in your world, in the people around you. If you can be positive, there's just nothing better than, and try to be positive with your team. I mean, we do that at our office, and we're very blessed to have great managers, Kimberly and Jess, that are always reaching out to our staff and trying to help them during the tough times. But, one of my favorite quotes is, you can't spell challenge without change. So if you look at the word challenge, you can't spell that word without change being in there. And if you're going to rise to the challenge, you have to be prepared to change. And then my question here is, how do you embrace change? I know this year, we have all had to change how we've done business. I mean, it is like, I know we're going to all be so sick of Zoom by the time we're all, but yet we've had to adapt, and those that have adapted are going to be stronger because of it. So I just want to kind of ask, just whoever, wants to reach out here and do that. But Paula, Dondra, Vicki, Kristin.
Yeah, I'll take it. This Dondra, Mimi, because I love that. I love the fact that you can't you're not going to be able to achieve a challenge without change, right? And I love that. I think that's so real. And, I'm going to kind of answer both questions, because the other question was, what kind of women succeed, right? And we're celebrating International Women's Day. We're celebrating how we have to really back each other up, right? And I think that you nailed it about the 5 of us, not the 4 of us, because you have that exact same attitude. But I can't tell you how people underestimate all the time the power of a positive attitude. And it's simple. And yet people don't do it. Whether it's you're at the airport and you're annoyed because you're late, or, whether, no matter what it is, we have a choice in our life, in our everyday life. And if we're going to accept the challenge, we have to have a positive attitude, because people react to change in 3 ways. They go negative. Why do we have to make that change? This year is just terrible. Let's just stay home and do nothing, right? There's your negative change. Then there is freeze. People just freeze. And Mimi, you see it. We all see it. People just freeze. Oh my God, there's COVID. I can't go anywhere. I'm scared. I'm just going to stay in the corner. I'm not going to make that outbound phone call that one of the ladies spoke about. I'm not going to write that note. I'm just going to freeze. And then when everything is all better, I'll be better, right? And then there's the positive one, right? So you don't want to be negative. You don't want to freeze. You want to be positive with change, because people who adapt to change with a positive attitude, they actually pivot out of that change and accept that challenge much quicker. And as a result, they get on the other side of it and they get the results much quicker. Those are the people that separate themselves from good to great. So understanding how hugely your positive attitude impacts your success. And by the way, Mimi, it's not just about working. It's about how you are with your significant other, how you are with your kids, how you are with your peers. If you have a positive attitude, you can adapt to anything and accept that challenge and get on the other side of it.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, I would definitely
nail the answer to that question.
It's true.
We've all lived it, right? Paula, we've all lived that, right? We face challenges every day, and it's up to us, right, to accept that challenge and get on the other side of it, right, Paula? So we just got to get it.
I think what's been the hardest I love change. I mean, personally, I love change. Usually it means something good is happening. It's exciting. It's energizing. You're making progress. Awesome, right? I have found this year difficult because of some of the changes we had to make, and it was related to staffing. When you're dealing with a change that is so heart-rendering and it is so emotional. I've really had some moments this year in accepting the challenge. And I agree with you. You cannot have that challenge without change. But I've really had to dig deep into my mindset and just say, this is inevitable. This is something that has to happen. I don't like it, but I am going to make it happen. And then I can start thinking about, how do I make this in the most graceful, respectful way that I possibly can, the least dramatic, and the most, something that I always say to myself is, how do I explain this to a person who's affected by this change in the mirror? How do I break it down and talk to them about this change that has to happen?
Right.
And that has really helped me through some of these more difficult changes and challenges that we've had this year. But yeah, overall, it is a positive attitude, because you see that this is what you have to do. Right. You have to do these things that you don't want to do now, because tomorrow it makes sense. And it's the right decision for today. But those have been, at least for me,
100%.
We've had some hard times this year. Yeah.
It is tough. When I think one of the hardest parts of that is when this all first started a year ago, there were so many unknowns. There were so many questions like, well, will we be back in a month, or will we be back in 6 months, or will we? And it was the constant change and adapting to that, and trying to keep people up and keep people positive, because the unknown, I think, was the hardest thing. And I think it's still one of the hardest things that we're all dealing with, is the unknown. But I think, if you go into it with a positive attitude, and Dondra, like you were saying, and Vicki, I remember you and I used to share books a long time ago about great customer service, and we'd send each other books. And I think it's not only being positive with your family, but it's also positive to that server at the restaurant that you're at, or wherever you're going, to be kind to people. Because I think if we're kind to people, whether they're strangers or whether they're friends and family, even more so if they're, because you don't know what somebody's going through. You don't know what kind of challenges, what kind of day they've had, what kind of, year they've had. So I think that being positive and kind is a real plus in this world right now. So I just think that, so I know several of you have been through several significant barriers that you've had to face in your career. So I think that's for a woman, especially, I think things are starting to change, as we see with our new vice president. And I think there's a lot of positives that are happening, and I'm so happy with that. But I just wanted to kind of get your opinion on what were some of the most significant barriers that you have faced and you've overcome, and how did that come about? And I know, Vicki, if you want to start with that one, that'd be great.
Okay, well, I feel like in the travel industry, we do not really have a glass ceiling. I think you look at these amazing women who I'm in the great company with on the screen. I would say that all of us feel like we can achieve whatever we want to achieve. And there really aren't as many barriers in our segment of our industry. However, that being said, I think the biggest challenge that I had faced is when I would get promoted into different roles, or when I moved companies, there are some people that want to set you up to fail. And, I complimented Dondra before, and I really meant that, because Dondra knows when I joined Royal Caribbean, thank goodness I had the industry experience and the knowledge, because while I came over there thinking everybody would love to have me on their team, not everybody wanted me at Royal Caribbean, right, Dondra? And some people felt like, what?
99.9 wanted you
there. A few people that thought, you know what, we don't want her here. She's going to carnivalize us. And so they felt like in order for them to win, that I had to lose. And I, like Dondra, we've always believed if I'm going to win, she should win. She can win. We can both win together. And if we all win, isn't that really the beautiful story? The other challenge I had, and I kind of touched on this before, is I only applied for one job in my entire career, and that was as a sales rep at 21 years old. After that, every time I got promoted, it was when somebody said, we want her in this role. Well, as I said earlier, when I was a director of the Western region at Carnival, Bob Dickinson got promoted to president. He called me and he said, I need you to move to Miami. I want you to become the senior vice president of sales and marketing. So I went from a director to the senior VP, as I said earlier. But now there was a whole line of VPs that thought, well, where is this girl coming from? I should be the one getting elevated to that. So I guess my thought here is that was a challenge. It took time for me to win everybody over, but eventually I did. Except for one person. One person just could not get with the program. And I remember Bob Dickinson saying to me, Vicki, fire her. And I said, oh no, Bob, I can't fire her. And he goes, she's being disrespectful to you. Get rid of her, fire her. You're the boss. And I had to fire her because she just wasn't going to accept that I was now in this leadership role when she felt she deserved that role. So I guess we all have to show kindness to one another, because you never know in life who's going to be your boss, where you're going to be. But, at the end of the day, all of the ladies on this panel have fancy titles, but I don't think that our titles define us in any way. We are all people. We want the same courtesy and kindness that we want to extend to others. We want it extended back to us. And I think that we all have to just be people who are thoughtful and kind to others.
Right. Paula, how about you? Have you had was there any barriers that you've had to overcome that you are going to share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I think early in my career, I was underestimated at times because I didn't shy away from voicing concerns about how a decision or a policy was going to affect a partner or a colleague. You know, I was considered soft because I took into consideration so greatly the impact that it would have on them, their feelings, their business, whatever. And I didn't feel that that was necessarily fair, because I do think that voicing the concerns of others is really important in any decision. I think when you make those decisions, it's important to think about everybody who's involved, not just your company, but the client, the partner, you know, whoever it is, the guy who's cleaning the office because, you know, we can't afford him for COVID anymore, you know, just voicing that concern, as I say, in my earlier days, was often considered, people thought of me as soft. She's so soft. She's not willing to make the hard decisions. And I really had to work hard at that to get people to understand I'm advocating. I have a passion here for this decision that we're going to make. And if I'm going to put my name on it, I want to make sure we thought about all this stuff. So, you know, now that I've been doing this for a lot of years, I love it because I think I've finally been recognized and kind of appreciated for that advocacy. And it makes me really smile. But early in my career, you know, it was perceived as, oh, she's just too nice. And I want to say that every boardroom needs a conscience. So if you're in that situation and the hard question has to be asked, do it.
Right. Exactly. One of the questions that I wanted to ask was, how do you guide other women to find success in their own lives? So, in what advice would you give people? What do you consider success, and how do you guide women, or what would you tell them and how to find success? And if we could get Kristin to start with that one, that would be great.
Absolutely. I always say, if you want it, go after it. Like, I would have never dreamed that I would be a co-owner of a leading global cruise line. Do you hear me? Oh, yeah. Okay, fine. All right. When I was growing up in East Germany, that was probably for me also a little bit my barrier, you know, the differences between Western Germany and Eastern Germany and how it all came together. So we were not really judged so often the right way. So that was a little bit this, where you really had to show what you can do and that you are able to do everything and the job. So if I have learned anything from my own journey, it is that through hard work and dedication, through loyalty as well. We discussed, of course, the passion, the positivity. Anything is possible. If you have your goals and your dreams and you pursue them, they will come through. We just have to believe it. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer. So that means we should never give up. And I have seen too many given up just in the middle of everything, just shortly before the finishing line. Right. So I would encourage the next generation of women leaders always to speak up and trust their instincts. And I also feel there is no better time than now, you know, where females become much more of a voice. And so that's a wonderful situation. We should raise our hand and volunteer for challenging tasks. We shouldn't wait to be asked, right? So just raise the hand and you will be chosen. Women tend to underestimate their skill set or their readiness to take on new or more difficult roles. And as a result, often get passed over when the big opportunities come up. We discussed that women get the babies, of course, and either stay home longer or not, or having this guilt trip between the family and the husband and the job, and everything has their own needs. But we have to work it through, and eventually it will become easier because we will also build a support system around ourselves. Mm-hmm. And this is also very, very important as a female to also build our own female support system, because we females all have the same challenges. Right. We understand what we go through, and it's better to do it together than alone.
Boy, that is so true. That female support system. You know, I remember when I first got married, you kind of think, oh, I love my husband and he's sitting right here. But there's, I was given very wise advice that don't forget your friends and don't forget your female, support system, because that is super important. And I can say that, well, with our office of 20 people and one male and all women, we have a great team there with women that support each other and believe in each other. And so that's great advice to keep that support system going. How about you, Vicki?
I think it's important to not look at yourself as a backup to the men. And I'll give you an example. When we were in the office, we would have these revenue meetings every week, and we'd come into the boardroom, and it's a large table, maybe 20 people can sit around it, and then there's chairs all around the perimeter of the room. And I remember, if you got there early, you sat at the big table, and you sat at the real Thanksgiving table, not the kids' table. And I remember a young lady coming up, and there was an empty seat, and she went right away. It was next to me, and she went right away. She's a young gal, but a very bright young star. And she sat in the back row, near the windows. And I said, no, come sit here. Come sit next to me. She said, oh, no, I got to let the more important people sit there. I said, listen, you got here early. You come sit next to me. I want you got there. It's like first come, first serve, right, Dondra? You get into the conference room. You do not put yourself. So ladies, don't put yourself at the kids' table. Sit with the adults. You are part of the conversation. Have confidence, and don't she was leaving that seat open for a man. And I'm not, we have to stand up for ourselves.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, Dondra.
I just want to add one thing, because I love what both of these ladies said, and I want to give an example of that. And that is, men don't need to be perfect. I've done a lot of research. Men get jobs more than women, to Kristin's point, because men think, oh, well, I did that for like a couple of months, so I'm qualified to go interview for that position, even though they really weren't totally qualified, because in their mind, they didn't feel the need to be perfect. We, on the other hand, Mimi, as women, we very much feel the need to be perfect, right? And as a result, we might say to that same opportunity, well, but I didn't really have that experience in that job. So I think I'm going to wait and see if I can get more experience and try to get that job next time, because I'll have more experience. Well, guess who's going to get the job? The guy who had the very small experience, who walked in there and said, give me this job. I'm ready. You won't be disappointed. Not the woman who had the same amount of experience, but didn't have that same confidence because she felt like she had to be perfect. And so we have to make sure that we don't feel that same need to be perfect, and don't be afraid to jump in and get after what it is that you want.
It's exactly right. And I can't agree with you more. There's just times that we have to be bold and respectful and bold.
Respectful.
Yeah. And Vicki, I'm sure that you were talking about how you were persistent, and you knew you were the right person, and you said, in Dondra, you too, with why did Delta not hire me? Why did but yet that you knew you're at the right place after American hired you. So and the whole term success, this isn't one of the questions that were part of our preliminary talks, but really, what is success? What is success? I mean, that's something that I think is something that's we got to all kind of think about in our own lives. What is success? And that's not part of it, but anybody wants to share with what you think success is? I'd love to hear it.
I think success differs by people. Dondra would say her success as a mom was the most successful part of her life, right, Dondra? Nod your head.
100%.
100. And I have 3 children. I'd say the success is I have a loving husband and 3 children. And yes, I've had a wonderful career, and I value it tremendously, but I would never have traded it for my husband and my 3 kids. And so I think success is different for different people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think success is your inner happiness. If you have peace in your heart, and you are happy as a person, and you feel good about what you're doing and how you're living your life, And that can be how your children still call you when they're, gosh, I hate to say it, 40 and 31, and they still need your advice. And your husband has had you home for a year, and you've never been home a year in your whole life, and he's still happy to see your face every morning. And you, as a professional, have managed through this crazy year, and yet you can still look at yourself every day and say, you know what? I feel good about me. And I hope that doesn't sound too selfish.
No, not
but
at all.
I think it comes from, for me, success is how I feel right here.
Yeah, I completely agree. It is about the happiness. It's about creating something meaningful for the other. It comes back to yourself. And success can be, small or big in every way. When I look at, for instance, a crew member on board one of our ships, those gentle acts of kindness that they have done and will do every day. And now they deserve this clap on the shoulder. For them, that was a big success, right? Because they made somebody extremely happy, maybe a magical memory for life. And at the same time, we have seen it, and we felt they have contributed so much to the company's success, much more than they even would think about, right? So there are so many different definitions, but I also feel it's about always, it's how you see life, how you feel good about things, that the glass is half full as well, with so many things and not half empty. And to show, again, back to your family, maybe also to show your children, what you have learned in this world. And to your point, Dondra, and the children will just become like you, most likely, right? And
Don't
then you have been successful.
Only the good parts, Kristin.
We don't want to be perfect, right? Every part is part of it.
Exactly. Well, this industry, we are all in the travel industry. I mean, there's probably people out there that are listening that aren't in the travel industry, but one of the things that I'd kind of like to get your input is how do you make sure you're encouraging each other, whether it's in life or in business or family, and what do we, this is kind of a, you've got Paula and Kristin that are competitors, but we've got Vicki and Dondra that, kind of are competitors, but we've got competitors, but how do you make sure that we're still encouraging each other, and it's not, there's plenty for everyone. So how do we do that? Kristin, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have never understood women who don't support other women. I mean, there are so many obstacles for women to overcome in business. So one of them shouldn't be each other, right? I always feel we rise by lifting others. And there is actually also a quote that I really, really like. Be the woman who fixes another woman's crown without telling the world it was crooked.
I love that.
And I think when we really do it, it will always come back, and we will help each other. Now, of course, in the cruise business, we are competitors, but actually right now we are not, because we all want to bring cruise business back to where it used to be. Right. We are all on the same page together with you, of course, Mimi, our travel advisors. Our biggest mission right now professionally is to start cruising again, no matter if it's the ocean or the river,
100%,
right? So we need to work together to make this happen, and we will make it happen. Yeah.
Paula, do you have any insight on that one? Or Dondra?
I think it comes from a place where we all know we're working so hard. I have observed these women in every conference, every hallway, every place you can even imagine, and everybody is working so hard. And when you know that everybody is working as hard as you are, you also have to realize you're not always going to win. You're not always going to have the best idea. You're not always going to have that, that award that's handed to you. But when you come from a place where you really respect and understand that everybody's working just as hard as you,
Right.
Everybody deserves a win. I am
Right.
so happy when any of these women win. In fact, Christine, you just announced this 7-river cruise or something, and I thought, that's brilliant. I was so happy for you. I thought that's a really good idea. That is really, really smart. And, you know, Vicki, when you all kind of announced your loan program and you trained your BDMs on how to help people through the PPP, I wish I would have done that, but I was so happy for you that you did that, you know?
Yeah.
And Dondra's reimagining the luxury and how they're going to reinvent. That's awesome. Those ideas could never all come from me, but I am truly happy when I see people that work really, really hard succeed. Oh, it's a win. Like you said, Christine, it rises, everybody rises from that. So,
And you know, Mimi, I will add one thing, because I think the lady said it so beautifully, but this is something that I learned a long time ago. And I've shared this many times in presentations. And that is, I am smart enough to know that I'm not the smartest one in the room. But let me tell you what I have learned. It's like Swiss cheese, right? Think about the fact that a piece of Swiss cheese and there's holes in it, right? And that some people get intimidated by other women or just by other people in general, right? So they think they're the smartest person in the room, or they don't think they're the smartest person in the room, but they want to surround themselves with people that are just like them to feel more comfortable. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening, I hope you hear this. The most successful people in life find a way to plug those holes, plug that Swiss cheese up with people that their strengths are your weaknesses. Because then what you do is you're plugging in those holes, and now where you were, and I don't mean weakness, but maybe weaker, right? Because we don't really have weaknesses, but maybe their strength is the thing that you don't feel the most confident about. And then here's the key, Mimi. You surround yourself with those type of people, not like you already have a you. You surround yourself with those people, and then you listen to them. Because what they will do is make you even more successful. So advice that I always give to other women is that we need to support each other. Use each other to plug those holes in that Swiss cheese, and not feel like we have to always try to be better or, you know, win more or whatever. And that really works, because the four of us, you could look at us and go, they're competitors, they're being fake nice to each other. And we're not. We genuinely like each other. And so it's real what you're seeing, but it's because we recognize the fact that we don't have to be the smartest one. We just have to surround ourselves with other amazing women and listen to them.
You know, and from an agency side, I can attest to that 1,000 times, because we are so fortunate to have a very different staff. As far as the age group, we've got those that have been here for a long time and very experienced. We've got a lot of young people that are so innovative and creative and come up with ideas. And it's been so fun for me to give them the reins and say, what are some ideas that you have? What are some creative ways? So like this spring, we had a 21 days of vacay. That was the idea. 100% of Jess Cummins are one of our managers. And Kimberly is always finding ways to think of our team members and lift them up and encourage them and build them up, and surrounding myself with a team of women that it's not a competition. It's all, we're in this together to succeed, to get through this difficult time. But listen, you know, I think one of the biggest reasons for our success is the fact that we listen to our team members and we let them have their input on what we're doing. It's no more the Mark and Mimi show. It is our team, and together everyone accomplishes more. And that's how we have been. And it's we're so blessed because of that. You know, just our team is amazing, and we encourage each other, and we listen, and listening and allowing people to shine, and not being afraid of that, not being, Mark and I were like way past, trying to take the credit for it, because we know we got way smarter people than we are. So we just, we want to let them, do the best job that they're doing, which they are. And it's just exciting to see, but you have to be willing to give up some control. And a lot of agencies are not willing to do that. They, you can't keep doing the same thing and expect different results. And if you don't take a chance to change, then you're going to keep getting the same results. So I think that's super important. So one thing I just want to ask, and then we're going to open it up to questions, because I know we've got several people have questions, but if you had one piece of advice to share with women, what would it be?
I mean, I could start if you want.
Okay.
I mentioned earlier that I was very fortunate to meet Bob Dickinson. 21 years old. He was my mentor, is still my mentor, and somebody I have tremendous respect. I feel very blessed in my life. But today, I don't believe people have time to be a mentor. I think the world is moving way, way too fast. But that doesn't mean that people don't want to give back and help you succeed. We do. But I think you have to kind of relook at what the role of a mentor is, and now get a board of directors. Have your own individual board of directors. Find 4 or 5 different people that you like what they have, a skill set or a particular personality or a trait, and make them different. And so, if you like Dondra because she really focuses on being assertive, then say, Dondra, would you be willing to be on my board of directors? If you like, somebody because of maybe a quality they possess. And you will find that if you get yourself a board of directors of people you admire, they don't all even have to all be in the same industry. You will be more successful, because now you're going to get input from a variety of people, and people will want to do that. I can tell you that everyone on this screen wants to give back. We all want to help that next generation succeed, because all of us had people, whether it was Rudy that believed in Kristin, and Jack who believed in you, Dondra, and different people. We all had people rooting for us. We want to now give back to others, because we're at a time in our lives that's what's sad. That is what gratitude is all about, is showing others that we can do what others did for us. And so get yourself a board of directors. Find those people you admire. And encourage your children. If you have young children or you have college-age children, I remember having this conversation with my kids, and I remember one of my children said, he asked me, and then he asked my husband, would we be on his board of directors? Now, my other 2 kids never asked that, but okay, that's all right. But it is nice to have a board.
Right. Anybody else have any thoughts?
I will add that I just want to, if I had to say short, brief, never give up. Period. If you don't get it the first time, get it the next time. And I tell my kids, if you can't go through the front door, go through the window. If you can't go through the window, go down the chimney. But never give up. And people give up too easy. Never give up. Get what you want.
That's true. Kristin?
Yeah, I would always say, try to have fun in whatever you do, because then everything is much, much easier. Yeah. So there is again this, if you love what you do, and you will never work a day in your life. It is maybe not always easy for a young person to identify what they really love. But I also feel that exactly the pandemic where we're in right now, and the virtual work so often from home, has enabled so many team members to connect so much more to the other departments and teams and see what they are doing, and maybe learning and becoming a part of it. And this whole collaboration maybe eventually leads to a certain move in the company, even to say, okay, maybe I was here for a year or 2. This doesn't go necessarily in this never give up, right? But just to be truthful to yourself, to say, no, that wasn't what I wanted, but maybe this is it now, and to go for it. So it is certainly also a time of trying, and I feel really you have to have a little bit of fun in whatever you do. Otherwise, you will not be the most successful person because you're missing that sparkle. And
Right.
with the fun comes the sparkle. Yeah.
Exactly. Paula, any insight from you?
Oh, I would just say try to keep things simple. I think women, we're just multitaskers by nature. We try to spread ourselves so thin. We want to be everything to everybody all the time. So if you can just try to simplify things, whether it's what is the one thing I can do that's going to make my boss's life easier? What's the one thing I can do that's going to make my team more successful? What's the one thing I can do that's going to help my family keep grounded right now? And just those three things. And that's what I'm going to do. Because if I try to do too many, I won't get any of them done right. So I'm a big believer in trying to keep things simple.
Yeah. I think one of the things that is important in my life is to show gratitude and to be grateful. And I think if you do that, if you try to be grateful and you try to and to be, I think two words I think also is to be generous and try to be generous in everything that you do. I think that's if you can do those two things, if you could be grateful and look at the, like you said, look at the glass half full and not half empty, and look at the bright side of things, and look at, everything works out for a reason. And so let's just get through it and get through these challenges, and we will get on the other side. I know we do have some questions in the Q&A.
I have a couple of questions that have come in.
Okay.
The first one is, what attributes do women have that make them effective leaders?
So I'll jump in on that. I think that women have empathy. And Paula spoke a while ago that people said she was soft, and she very quickly figured out how to overcome the soft, but never gave up the ability to create camaraderie. So I think that women do a remarkable job of showing empathy and kindness.
Right.
And it never has to be shown as weakness if you also balance that with confidence and strength.
Right.
I would say being a good listener. And I think we were taught as young girls growing up just to kind of be quiet and take a back seat. And the boys got all the attention. And because we're good listeners, we learn more. And as good listeners, if you ask a good question, you gain even more knowledge. So I would say women are better at listening.
I would say those two qualities would lead to what I would say is collaboration is the key.
Right.
Once you have the right people around you, as Dondra said, and you can really feel comfortable and confident, everybody puts their cards on the table, just get to that point where you, and Mimi, you said it too, you don't have to be the smartest person in the room or to have the best idea. Take everybody, as Vicki said, listen, be empathetic, listen to everybody's point of view, and then collaborate to get to that one point where everybody buys in. Because when you have a group of people that are working with you that buy in, you are unstoppable. Unstoppable.
Exactly.
Well, based on family, and so women have a little bit of this nurturing part in which is really very important, especially for young team members, to be listened to be heard. Women can guide very well, and women are maybe more patient sometimes, and tolerant. And it's not just, this is just the road to go, but women also tend to look a little bit, so how can we accomplish this? And again, putting ourselves always in the other one's shoes.
Right.
And I think this makes a woman very, very special so often.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Leah, any other questions?
We have several comments that I'd like to just read off. Thanks to all of these incredible women for such an uplifting session. Best Zoom webinar ever. I love the brightness in each of their eyes. They are totally real. What an inspirational afternoon. You are so right about reaching out to clients. I make calls especially to my senior clients. Mimi is amazing. The rest of all of you are too. All of us on this video conference are blessed by your words.
Oh, that's sweet.
And
Love-
Al Rosen said, agree with Dondra. I'm a friend with Mimi, and she is so amazing. This is an excellent panel. I'm a man and love to hear your perspectives.
That's awesome.
John also said, all of you are amazing. Thank you for sharing your stories. And we don't have very many questions. Great presentation. Thank you for your insights.
Well, thank you all for being on here tonight. Is there any last minute words you have? Are you okay? Or anything you want to share before we head off for the evening? And just
I just want to stay positive, everyone. Life doesn't stop, and we are going to get to the other end, and it is sooner versus later.
yes.
Amen to that. And thank you, Mimi. Thank you for pulling this all together. It was inspirational for me and motivational. I feel like I know these women and I've learned a little something about each one of them tonight that I didn't. And that's always nice too. So thank you.
And you know, Mimi, I will say that I want everybody to remember that no matter how crazy of a time we're in, it's time to look in the windshield and quit looking in the rearview mirror.
Right.
Let's all look forward and let's all do it together.
Exactly.
Very grateful to know all of you, to have you as part of our family, being part of your family. And thank you everyone for the time to being part of this conversation, and happy International Women's Day
Yes.
to all the females and to all the males. Like Rudy said, actually, he opened this morning, he said, what about us? What about us male? An International Men's Day. And you know, I'm from Germany originally, and there is actually one in May. So I said to him, look, you're from Austria, you're living in California now, you're not in Germany. Be grateful for what you have, right? Comes the gratitude.
Well, thank you so much for being on here. I think we've all learned something on overcoming challenges and just learning to be better people and just to just choose to challenge and not be afraid of it, and just to move forward. And like you said, Dondra, look through the windshield, not through the rearview mirror. And we are going to get through this, and we are going to be better because of it. So thank you all for your time, and just God bless you all.
God bless you, Mimi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Mark.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.